In whispers and bellows, the word is spreading about Hasbro potentially selling off Wizards of the Coast. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Did I literally say it wrong when I'm trying to to get you to buy? I can't even say it. You should buy it though. Buy the shirt, because my brain is turning to mush. I'm gonna need the money, because they're gonna put me in, and Carly's gonna put me in an old folk home. I'm gonna be all alone and sad. What are we here for? Oh, that's right. We're here to talk about an article that was released a few days ago. Basically, a case for the possible sale of Wizards of the Coast being on the horizon. Now, the reason I have elected to talk about this is because, again, multiple people have come to me asking me my opinion on the subject. It came up a number of times in last night's live stream and other ways. And when enough people mention something to me, I decide that it is a worthwhile subject. So we're going to go through this article's points. Basically, the article is literally called Rolling for Initiative, a case for the possible sale of Wizards of the Coast being on the horizon. And that is from the ICV2 website, in case you want to go and check it out yourself. So I'm going to read out what it says here, and I'm going to share my thoughts. Now, basically, the article says, I received several emails regarding last week's column, and a couple of them brought up another possibility. Hasbro might be cleaning up loose ends in preparation for selling off Wizards of the Coast. Consider the following points. Point number 1. Hasbro never really wanted to deal with Dungeons & Dragons or Magic the Gathering. For decades, Hasbro has focused on either developing its own lucrative product lines, for example, My Little Pony, or acquiring the licenses to hot or long-lasting properties, such as Star Wars or Transformers. Now, it is interesting that you would try and lump Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering not into the category of long-lasting properties. I mean, decades and decades, right? Like, Dungeons & Dragons has been around for what, 40 years at least? Magic's been around for almost 30 years. That's a long-lasting property, but whatever. So, it says, if you've been in the industry a long time, you'll remember that Wizards of the Coast started off as a third-party creator of fantasy RPG-compatible supplements, most notably Primal Order. It launched the Magic line in the early 1990s, and then bought the assets of TSR in 1997, as well as secured the license to Pokemon in 1998, releasing the first coveted packs for the game in the US in January of 1999. Hasbro saw how hot the Pokemon license was and wanted it. The easiest way to accomplish that was to buy the license holder. That's actually pretty amazing to think about, the fact that Hasbro's just like, you know what, we want that Pokemon license. Why don't we just buy the whole company outright? The kind of decisions that can be made on that level are pretty amazing. So, the article continues. Unfortunately, Wizards' license from Nintendo ended in 2003, and rather than extending it, Nintendo opted to take the license back and take card production in-house, more or less, creating the Pokemon Company to handle the TCG sales, leaving Hasbro with D&D and Magic, neither of which lent themselves to building a strong toy brand. Granted, Hasbro has done exceedingly well with the two brands, but the company has not had much success developing either a second TCG or RPG brand. So that is the first point that's being made in favor of Wizards of the Coast selling the company. The second point is Hasbro knows board games. If you remember earlier this year, Hasbro opted to move the Wizards of the Coast board game lines from Wizards of the Coast to the parent company line. That's true. Actually, basically, Avalon Hill games were being made by Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro removed that from Wizards of the Coast, and now it's directly being done by Hasbro. The article continues. At the time, I was more interested in the effect of the move on local gaming store profit margins and distribution of the Wizards portfolio board games, the few of which Wizards has successfully brought back to market. However, if Hasbro plans to sell the company, keeping the part of it that Hasbro understands and has successfully sold for decades makes sense. Just look at the recent crowdfunding program for HeroQuest. So the point that's being made here is Hasbro moved Avalon Hill because that clears the way. Okay, you know, we're going to sell Wizards because we don't really get Magic and D&D the same way, but we can totally manage these Avalon Hill board games because like Hasbro makes Monopoly and all these other sort of board games, so that falls into the wheelhouse. So that is an argument saying that those moves are in a way primed to help make the sale happen, right? Number 3, the third point of 4 that this article makes, is cleaning up the company. If Hasbro's wanting to shop the company around, it would be much easier to sell without any outstanding contracts into which Wizards has entered. In both the Weiss Hickman and Gale Force 9 lawsuits, and I'm just going to assume you guys are familiar with both of those, as I've covered both of those on this channel, right? So those two because basically in both those cases, a cursory look at them indicates situations the parties could have reached negotiated settlements regarding instead of a hard and fast lawsuit to end the contract. If word arrives of Hasbro/Wizards breaking its contract with WizKids for the Dungeons & Dragons line of miniatures and WizKids filing a retaliatory lawsuit, the idea that Hasbro plans to put the division up for sale becomes a lot more plausible. So the idea essentially is if Hasbro is hacking and slashing away every particular contract that is done to make the company easier to sell and not have as many agreements that the purchaser is going to be forced to enter into. Because if someone has a contract with Wizards of the Coast, Wizards of the Coast being sold doesn't invalidate that contract, which is actually throws a monkey wrench into the gears for people who think that Wizards of the Coast being sold to another company means the reserve list isn't really going to be a binding thing anymore. In most situations, it does seem like it would still apply, all right? So basically, what they're saying is we've already seen this happen with the Dragonlance novels, although I don't think that those are being canceled for that reason. There's a different reason behind this stuff. But either way, you've got multiple contracts where Wizards is trying to get out, just end the contract, just boom, let me out of this. I don't even care. Oh no, we don't have to go forwards with this. Oh no, we don't have to go forwards with this. And they are refusing to try and work with the other parties. So the other parties are actually having to go ahead with a lawsuit. And so the argument here is that Wizards of the Coast currently has a contract with WizKids to make D&D miniatures. And if they got out of that contract, that would further signal the severing of ties to make the company just, boom, we can just sell that off, right? So the fourth point is who would buy? This is the part that always puts me off about a sale of Wizards of the Coast by Hasbro. Who could buy the company? I can think of a number of companies that would like to buy Wizards. Paizo, Goodman Games, Troll Lord Games, and Kobold Press come to mind. But none, at least not that I know of, have the cash flow available to fund such a purchase. Publishing RPGs is not a path to riches. However, the successful sale of Asmodee in 2018 to a private equity firm indicates that there is interest in investing in the game industry from companies that exist outside of it. And then it finishes off by saying, a similar private equity company might see significant value in acquiring both the top RPG and top TCG brands in one fell swoop. So, those are the points being made in this article. Now, if you've paid close attention to the wording, you can tell that even the author himself doesn't feel like there's a super strong case to present for the sale of Wizards of the Coast in this situation. To me, this is the sort of thing that floats around. We see, like, every couple of years, it feels like people start talking about Wizards of the Coast being sold, and I think it's really just from a more hopeful perspective, where people are hoping Wizards of the Coast will be sold by Hasbro and end up in the hands of somebody who will be better caretakers. Ultimately, to me, that doesn't seem like it would be the case. If Wizards of the Coast was sold to another company, that new company would expect Wizards to make profit. They're not going to turn around and go, you know what? Let's not make money. Make the best product for the consumers. That just seems really unlikely to me. So having that kind of hope that just selling the company would fix things seems really, really unlikely. It would be, to me, it would probably be the same situation or worse. That's how I view it. So when you address the points, the first point being Hasbro never really wanted to deal with Dungeons & Dragons or Magic the Gathering, that's an irrelevant point at this point. Like, the fact that they bought the company for Pokemon almost 20 years ago doesn't matter, right? Like, Magic the Gathering is quite profitable now. We see when Hasbro does its profit reports, its quarterly earnings reports, which are pretty much the most important thing that Hasbro produces, because that's what informs their shareholders, and their shareholders are Hasbro's actual customers. They're who Hasbro wants to make happy. Hasbro doesn't really care if you enjoy your game of Monopoly as long as you pay for it. They don't care if your Magic cards are bent as long as you pay for them. Like, as long as they have the money to write down in the little report and go, check it out, shareholders, the money's going up. So if you'll notice, when you take a look at more recent Hasbro earning reports, Magic is featured prominently in every single one. They brag about Arena, they brag about paper sales. Like, Magic is not some little side thing. Dungeons and Dragons, admittedly, doesn't get as much attention because Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have the same cash milkability. Sure, you can do a new edition every 5 years and make everybody buy the new books again, but they can also just go, no, I'll just keep using the edition I have. Whereas Magic, you can be, oh, I'm not going to play with the new card. It does not translate the same way, right? So Magic the Gathering is way more profitable. It's one of Hasbro's biggest earners right now, when Hasbro's, like, the companies that Hasbro owns have just been getting the beat down, yo. Like, they've just been getting obliterated. Think about Toys R Us and all, like, the little toy companies and stuff that have just been getting smacked around by the world before the big shutdown even happened, right? And Magic actually seems to be getting a little bit of a goose from what's going on in the world, where you're sitting around at home, whatever, man, the Magic boxes, the cards, they're still flowing. This will, I think this is going to lead to a fundamental shift in the way that the company views Magic the Gathering, because they're being given some hard data they would never get through experimentation. They would never go, let's just completely abandon physical play anywhere and see what happens, you know, because that's what's going on in the world, what it's caused. So the idea that Hasbro's going to sell Wizards of the Coast because they never wanted Magic, and it's like, oh, I never wanted this thing in the first place, but oh my God, look at all the money it makes. This is amazing. I love this thing now. So that point doesn't stand up whatsoever. And I mean, that starts to shred the other situations where it's like, Hasbro knows board games. Yes, they did move Avalon Hill over to being directly controlled by Hasbro. It's actually a better point than the first point, going, look, they took this away, so maybe they're changing things up. We're going to keep Avalon Hill and we'll sell off Wizards of the Coast with the rest of the stuff. So that point is a little bit better than the first point, but at the same time, again, Magic is a banger. It's making crazy money. They're pulling it hand over fist. We're in the middle of a 5-year plan to double the company's profits, and it's succeeding. So why would you get rid of this golden goose, right? There's the only scenario I could think of where Hasbro would sell something as profitable is where they were so desperate, like they absolutely had to have money immediately to avoid a bankruptcy or something. But even then, Magic would feel like what would pull you out of that, right? So to me, I can't get behind the idea that they're going to try and like get rid of Magic because they know board games. They're like, well, whatever. The third point of cleaning up the company, this actually is the most compelling point in a way. The idea that they are just trimming off all outside sort of connections, but I don't believe that's why it's being done. I think the Gale Force lawsuit and everything that's going on with them is just Wizards of the Coast is finally going, you know what? We're basically just going to distribute this stuff through Amazon, right? And like everything we make, it doesn't matter what it is, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever, we're going to do it all ourselves. Like the Gale Force was an outside of them, we can make the D&D books and do all this kind of stuff for different parts of the world. And they're like, no, we want to do that. We're going to take all the money, forget it. You can't do that anymore. We're going to take full control, right? And also with the novel lawsuit, the whole thing that's going on about the Dragonlance books, that to me comes across more as Wizards of the Coast looking at the current times we're living in, attempting to have a particular image that they're putting across to the world and feeling like the Dragonlance books and the old school Dungeons and Dragons stuff like that has to go, right? Because that's like, there's a bunch of stuff in old school Dungeons and Dragons that all of a sudden has become a problem for certain people. And as a result, the company is like, okay, you know what? We don't want to make these anymore. We got to come back and make too many corrections. Trying to make these hypersensitive people happy with all the things that they want is also not working. So why don't we just scrap this? This is not what we want. We don't want the bad publicity. It could actually be connected to the backlash they felt over the Magic novels, because they literally had to ditch the Theros novel altogether and instead give us 16 like 2-sentence paragraphs and goes, here's your story. That was crazy. Just nuts. Whatever. Anyways. So for me, the idea that they're severing contracts actually could be a good argument for making a sale. However, it seems like there's really obvious reasons for these contracts being severed, and it doesn't seem like a let's tighten up the ship so we can sail it into another harbor-style sail maneuver, right? So that one is whatever. And then the final point is where who would buy it, he's basically arguing against it almost. He's putting up the point that somebody could come in from the outside and be like, yo, we're going to buy this. But it seems highly unlikely. And the big players in the game industry don't have the money that Hasbro do to be able to buy it off of Hasbro. So the fourth point kind of works against the argument the article's making. But hey, you know what? Fair play for bringing up, trying to bring up both sides of it, right? Where it's like, well, who would buy it? These people maybe, these people wouldn't. So there is that. Now, ultimately, do I believe that Hasbro is priming up to sell Wizards of the Coast? Not a chance. Like, wave it away, dismiss it. Honestly, a few years ago, when the idea was being floated around, it seemed more believable to me. But right now, Hasbro is clinging to Wizards of the Coast like a little life raft kind of thing. You know what I mean? They're on the edge of the floating door going, Rose, is there room for me? Come on, this is such a huge door. Why do I have to sink under the water so it's more romantic for the ladies? Come on, don't let me go. So like years ago, when Wizards was having tons of quality problems, Ixalan wasn't doing well, all the master sets were bombing, like things were bad for Magic. Now, things are booming. People may complain about the secret layers, but they are selling like hotcakes. And hotcakes, they're in season because it's cold out. So sales are even better, right? So we've got a scenario where they're literally succeeding at ramping up their revenue. Hasbro would have to be insane to sell the company. It's completely illogical for them to turn around and go, yep, we're going to sell it. So for me, whatever, man. You guys wanted to talk about it? So here's the discussion. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below about all of this. I do enjoy reading through all the stuff that's going on. You never know where it's going to lead me. But either way, speaking of leading you, I've got a brand new lore video that just released on my other channel, the Old School Lore. Old school storytelling is absolutely amazing. And if you have, do I have the book over here? Yeah, right here. So I'm going to be starting another storyline using the very first Magic novel over there as well. So if you want to see a really old school Magic story, this isn't actually based around planeswalkers. There's only one planeswalker in the novel, and he shows up like at the end. He has a massive influence on a whole plane of existence, but it's really, really interesting the way that they illustrate Magic in this. In some ways it's basic, but they even actually encompass the fact that we used to play for ante in here in a believable way. If you like cool, powerful mage duels and stuff, you're going to love this story. So I'm going to cover that over on my Fantasy Geographic channel. I'll have a link up here for you to get over there at the end, leading to the newest lore video so you can enjoy that. I guess we're done here. So if you like what I'm doing, like, comment, subscribe. It's all great for the channel. If you love what I'm doing, jump on my Patreon. There's also the option of delicious merch that is located down below in the link description section. So thanks for coming by, my friends. I will see you all very soon.